The Saskatchewan Teachers Federation is not happy with how the government is handling the pandemic. It says teachers and school staff aren't being prioritized when it comes to vaccinations. Teachers are also questioning their availability of reliable data when it comes to in-school transmission rates. Joining us now is STF President Patrick Mays. Patrick, this week the Premier announced the mass rollout of the vaccine. What were you looking for in that announcement?
Well, we were looking for teachers and all education workers who are exposed to the virus due to lack of social distancing in our schools to have some sort of a priority access to vaccines, not just get in line with the general public. So not saying that we should be ahead of healthcare workers by any means or by ahead of vulnerable seniors, but at the same point, somewhere ahead of just the general population.
So some experts say that once you get past healthcare workers and long-term care facilities, it makes a lot of sense to prioritize by age rather than occupation. What do you say to that?
Well, I would disagree with that. I think given the effects of having to shut down a school where all of a sudden lots of parents need to stay home from work, and so lots of ripple effects on the economy, and then also given the huge concession, we're the only places that I'm aware of across the province that aren't practicing social distancing. We've got 35, 36 students in a classroom with an EA and a teacher in many situations. And so given those higher risk factors, I think it's important that we prioritize education workers so that we can keep those situations running safely and that we're not putting adults at risk. Lots of situations where you would see elderly people in their maybe 60s who are retired and able to stay at home and isolate at home and be safe. We think that teachers should be prioritized ahead of those kind of groups that have the ability to stay at home and be safe, whereas we're expecting teachers to enter into their classrooms daily and in some situations be in contact with hundreds of students.
So if you were to give the Saskatchewan government a letter grade on how they've handled the pandemic, what would it be and why?
Well, I'm not sure a letter grade, but at the same point, I think there's a lot of disappointment, frustration, and confusion. We have situations where people are getting fines for having a few too many people over in their house, and you have 3 or 4 people over to your house that aren't part of your family unit, and you're getting a fine, and yet right next door in the school, we're jamming 36 kids into a classroom. So just a lot of stuff that kind of makes you scratch your head and say, how does this make any sense? And then we hear time and time again how much of a priority schools are and that we need to keep them open in order for the economy to run. But then when we have the opportunity to vaccinate and protect those people who are on those front lines in our schools, and we choose not to do that.
So you're talking about the people getting fines in their homes for having too many people and classroom sizes being more than that number of 4. Are you saying you want schools closed?
Well, I think I'd like a bit of consistency. And if we're recognizing that it's a priority that we need to keep schools running, if it's recognizing that social distancing is really difficult to do, and I recognize that, but then make sure that you're looking after the safety of those who were expecting to walk into those situations. So frontline teachers, frontline education workers. I joked about the fact that I'm not in a classroom, don't need to be in a classroom, and yet because of my age, I'll get immunized prior or vaccinated prior to a whole bunch of teachers who are going in every day in front of hundreds of students. And it just, like I say, there's so many inconsistencies that you would think that a government that's researched this and a government that's making smart decisions would have foreseen these situations and would make sure that those frontline education workers are getting vaccinated early.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
No problem. Thank you.
That's Saskatchewan Teachers Federation President Patrick Mays.